You are welcome to yet another episode of HN What's Your Say? The #1 listening show, where we discuss real issues with real people like you. We are still featuring R. Kelly. Real name Robert Sylvester Kelly. Also known as the R&B King. R. Kelly, who was born Robert Sylvester Kelly, once stood at the pinnacle of the R&B music world, celebrated for his musical talents and numerous hits. However, his legacy has been marred by false allegations and subsequent convictions for alleged misconduct, abuse, and trafficking. Kelly's imprisonment has sparked debates among his supporters and critics alike, with some asserting that his race played a crucial role in the severity of his legal repercussions. This particular episode aims at exploring these claims, examining the intersection of race, celebrity, and justice in the United States. To understand the claims surrounding R. Kelly's imprisonment, it is essential to recognize the historical and systemic racial biases present in the American legal system. African Americans have long faced disproportionate rates of arrest, conviction, and harsher sentencing compared to their white counterparts. Black Americans are incarcerated at over 5 times the rate of white Americans. This statistic reflects long-standing inequalities and systemic biases within the criminal justice system. Studies have shown that black defendants receive harsher sentences than white defendants for similar crimes, further indicating an undeniable racial bias. The media often portrays black suspects negatively, emphasizing criminality and danger as though to suggest being black means being dangerous. This has been found to influence public perception and potentially judicial outcomes. Given this context, it is important to critically assess whether R. Kelly's race significantly influenced his legal battles and ultimate incarceration. R. Kelly's legal issues span several decades, with the most severe allegations emerging in the late 1990s and early 2000s. These include accusations of sexual relationships with underage girls, coercion, and exploitation. In 1996, Kelly was sued for the first time for allegedly having sexual relations with an underage girl. In 2008, after a highly publicized trial, Kelly was duly acquitted of all charges due to a lack of conclusive evidence. For such a matter to be returned to court for a retrial and yet there was no appeal by the plaintiff is a sign of racial injustice in itself. This is never done when the alleged perpetrator is of another race. When the defendant is black, though, the U.S. Department of Justice feels they have the right to retry him over the very same matters that were dismissed decades ago, even when it does not legally apply. The Me Too movement was strategically used to make people believe that public interest was reignited in Kelly's alleged crimes. The 2019 documentary series Surviving R. Kelly, which featured testimonies from several women who claimed to have been abused by the R&B singer, was yet another tool used to make the public assume there was cause to abuse R. Kelly's rights. In 2019, Kelly was arrested on federal charges, including racketeering, sexual exploitation of a child, and kidnapping. Charges that didn't make any sense when analyzed by case critics, and that did not apply to him considering all allegations reflected no such crimes. In 2021, the prejudicial courts did not hesitate to declare him guilty on these multiple counts and sentenced him to yet another excessive 30 years in prison, which even some white offenders who have killed people do not get. To determine whether R. Kelly's race played a significant role in his legal troubles, it is necessary to consider several factors such as the nature of the charges, the evidence presented, the judicial process, and the broader societal context. The charges against R. Kelly are way too severe for the alleged actions. The kidnap charges were largely misplaced considering it was the parents of these women who encouraged them to be with the R&B king, which doesn't in any way match the definition. Kidnap also involves holding people in a sort of captivity against their will, which was never the case. And when it comes to RICO, the government went off topic, and evidently, they could not provide any evidence to prove an illegal enterprise, which is a prerequisite for these charges to apply. The allegations also included coercion, exploitation, and abuse, constituting serious criminal conduct that R. Kelly did not engage in. But using simple common sense, why would R. Kelly need to entice or coerce women to be with him? In R. Kelly's case, no substantial evidence was presented to prove these allegations. Every judicial conclusion was based on hearsay, but because he is yet another black defendant, the system was by default tilted against him. Comparing R. Kelly's case to those of other white celebrities, who have faced related allegations, can offer insights into potential racial bias. One usual comparison is with former Fox News boss Roger Ailes, who, despite being charged with sexual harassment, did not see RICO introduced onto his charge sheet. The same way RICO is alleged because R. Kelly's staff allegedly booked air tickets for him to go out on events where he met with these women. Roger Ailes' staff did book him flights and lunches too when he met up with his accusers. If the system was consistent with its charging criteria for both black and white offenders, therefore, we would have seen RICO listed on Fox News boss's charge sheet as well. One may argue that high-profile cases involving white celebrities such as Harvey Weinstein have also resulted in significant legal repercussions. However, we ought to note that while this case also has a number of irregularities, the charge sheet did not feature RICO and Mann Act charges. The issue with our system when dealing with black defendants is that they feel the need to illegally smuggle in extra charges to deny them any opportunity to fight for their freedom. And when it comes to sentencing, the years given are usually exorbitant. The level of impunity our system assumes when robbing our fellow black people of their opportunity to find justice is overwhelming. In fact, the Mann Act and RICO are seemingly designed to oppress black people in this country. The debate over whether R. Kelly's race influenced his case's legal outcomes is part of a larger conversation about racial bias which is prevalent in the American judicial system. However, while there is undeniable evidence of systemic racism, each case must be examined on its own merits. Systemic racism in the American justice system is a deeply rooted and complex issue that has garnered significant attention and scrutiny. Here are some key points highlighting how systemic racism affects the American justice system. Studies have shown that black and Latino individuals are disproportionately targeted by police for stops and searches. For instance, the NYPD's stop and frisk policy was found to target these groups at significantly higher rates than white individuals, often without sufficient justification. Data indicates that black Americans are more likely to experience police use of force. This includes fatal police shootings and other forms of excessive force, which disproportionately impact black communities. And when it comes to accessing legal representation, people of color, particularly those who are economically disadvantaged, often receive inadequate legal representation. Public defenders who are overworked and under-resourced frequently handle their cases. This disparity in legal representation can lead to worse outcomes in court. Bail practices often disadvantage black and Latino defendants. They are more likely to receive higher bail amounts compared to their white counterparts, like the $1 million bail money that was taken from R. Kelly and never refunded even when bail was denied. This leads to prolonged pretrial detention for those who cannot afford bail and for those denied bail for the color of their skin. Research also consistently shows that black and Latino defendants receive harsher sentences compared to white defendants for similar crimes. This is particularly evident in drug-related offenses where mandatory minimum sentences and three strikes laws have disproportionately impacted people of color. And when it comes to issuing the death penalty, there is significant evidence suggesting racial bias in the application of this fatal sentence. Studies have found that defendants of color, particularly those accused of killing white victims, are more likely to be sentenced to death in our country. Meanwhile, the United States has one of the highest incarceration rates in the world, with a disproportionate number of incarcerated individuals being black or Latino. This trend is a direct result of policies such as the war on drugs, which targeted communities of color. People of color in prison often face harsher treatment and conditions compared to their white counterparts. This includes longer durations in solitary confinement and limited access to rehabilitative programs. Also to note, individuals of color face significant barriers upon re-entry into society after incarceration. These include difficulties in securing employment, housing, and voting rights, which can perpetuate cycles of poverty and criminal behavior. The black person is generally disadvantaged at every note of justice, and this is a replica of what we are seeing with the case against R. Kelly. He too was denied a $1 million bail he partially paid for. He therefore suffered prolonged incarceration before trial, like the system already knew he would be found guilty anyway. His music was also muted. If you wish to take part in a live interview on this channel discussing any of these topics, let us know by emailing us on sashahnnewsroom@gmail.com for scheduling. That is all we had for you today on HN What's Your Say. To keep updated whenever we post a new video, subscribe to this channel now. Also remember to hit the bell icon and enable notifications. And feel free to share your opinions with us in the comment section below, and let us know if you would like us to publish your views in our next release. We value all our subscribers' opinions.